Just don't stop. Here we go. We're live. It's a Celtic State of Mind. It's still 12:30. Ian Conroy and I are not yet late. We're going to be joined by our man in Japan. It's Liam Carrigan. And we will, it's the Schmeichel jersey. Look at that, mate.
Yep.
That's a belter. Fully long sleeved, is it?
It's actually got the kind of 3/4 sleeve, so you can get a pair of goalie gloves on, so I can kid on that I'm still a player.
I tend to get the wee fella the goalie strips because they're long sleeved, obviously, just so you can wear them all year round. But he said to me, "Not this year, Dad." There you go. Liam will get it though. Liam will get it. There's always somebody will get it. I was hearing during the week there, just over the weekend rather, that that camouflage top is definitely the third jersey. That's going to be a homage to the jungle. Ian, how loosely based is that? A homage to the jungle. Brilliant. We've got lots to talk about. We need to start with Matt O'Reilly. Ian Conroy, I'm going to come to you first. I know that you always keep a keen eye on matters down south from where I'm positioned anyway, in relation to the big money down south. It seems to be being managed differently at the moment, but the English money is apparently being bid for Matt O'Reilly. We're hearing £25 million plus £5 million in add-ons. It looks as though the walls are closing in on us on this one, Ian. And even the most positive of Celtic fans are probably preparing for the departure of Matt O'Reilly.
Yeah, it seems to be, if we listen to if we believe the newspapers. I wouldn't mind seeing us getting Mitoma as a part exchange, getting the band back together. I remember that Big Ange saying that when Hatate and Mitoma played against his team out in Japan, they destroyed him. So that would be quite a nice combination, and it would soften the blow, I think, a little bit. But after we played against Everton at the weekend, I can't see that happening anytime soon. In terms of the club Brighton seemed like a good club. They seemed well ran, but he's leaving a Champions League club in Celtic to a team that's not in the Champions League. They're just playing in England, so it must be a strategic stepping stone move, perhaps for a season. He's backing himself to go into the EPL and maybe sort of, And look, that's happened before as well. It happened with Van Dijk, didn't it? He had to go to Southampton to bed in before he got that big move, rather than, and it's a shame really, because if Liverpool had sort of put some faith in that, we could have got more money for Van Dijk and they could have saved money in the process. So, but yeah, sad that it seems likely that he's going to go, and I'm surprised that it is Brighton. But yeah, the Premier League has all the money. I'm sure that's not why he's going. No. I think it's well known that he's got a good head on his shoulders. He's got a good family behind him and well advised. I think it's probably just a stepping stone to bigger and better things, which he will go on to do, as I think we all would agree.
I think it's great to dream in relation to a replacement. There's been a few other names that we'll be discussing today. I think Mitoma's pals with Hatate. Were they training over the summer, Liam, weren't they? Is that right? Did I see a video of them back in Japan training?
Yeah, they go back quite a bit. There was a kind of a debate in Japan at the time, like who was going to go on to be the better player. Would it be Hatate or would it be Mitoma? Because they were both kind of up and coming at the same time. Now, Mitoma is playing in England, so he's got the higher reputation now, but genuinely, I think they're both pretty much on the same level in terms of ability. But I would love to see Mitoma at Celtic, but absolutely no chance of it happening, unfortunately.
No, that would take a dent. Sorry?
We did about the same time we signed Kyogo. We went in for him. There was basically there was four players that Ange initially wanted to sign. It was Kyogo, Dyson, the centre back. What was his name? The one that went to Germany. His name is. There was a centre back, a Japanese centre back who went to Germany. I think he went to Schalke in the end, and there was also Mitoma. And we got Kyogo at the time. We took Dyson at the end of the Japanese season because Ange, being the kind of guy that he is, didn't want to weaken his old team by taking their best player when they were still fighting for the league title. So, that was decent. I'm gonna have to look up the name of that centre half because it's going to annoy me. I can't remember.
Itakura.
Itakura, that's it. Itakura. God, I'm glad you said that because that was going to annoy me.
We did speak about him quite intense. It looked like a good signing, and obviously Ange knew the kind of cream of the crop when it came to Japanese players. The minute you go down south, you've seen it with Adam Maeda, you need to pay upwards of £8.5 to £9.5 million for a Championship player. Trying to pluck someone from the Premiership, I think maybe you're looking at kind of young guys, etc. We've done that pretty effectively in the past. We'll get on to Hatate, by the way, because his name has started filtering in to the transfer gossip. But O'Reilly, yeah, I get what you mean, Ian. It's that kind of calibre player. And unfortunately, we can't replace like for like. What we need to try and do is replace him with a player who was Matt O'Reilly 2.5 years ago in terms of his development. And I know that the name that comes up time and time again, and we'll wait to see how credible the sources are, is Arne Engels, 20 years of age. He's the guy that we're apparently looking at £10 million. But, we're going to be waiting until O'Reilly's out the door. You would just hope, Liam, that we know that it's at the moment, it's a temporary arrangement with the recruitment and the scouting, but we do have enough in terms of a contingency if Matt leaves, because it is looking likely, and it's looking likely within the next week, probably.
Mm. I mean, what we need to remember is, Brighton are not the biggest club, infinitesimal compared to Celtic in terms of global fan base, whatever. But they've got the money and they run a very good system down there. They're a small team who have maximised what they've got, and they play really good football. And as much as I don't want Matt O'Reilly to go, I think that would be a really good move for him, because I think he would slot right into that team as well.
Yeah, and as you say, and we've seen players in the past taking a step before they go to probably the top 6, top 8 clubs within one of these big divisions. I believe that Matt O'Reilly could develop into that type of player. I really do. But in the meantime, Ian, if he does go, and it's looking likely, he goes with your best wishes simply because of the way he's conducted himself. There's been no downing of tools. There's been no loss of form. There's been no cryptic Instagram messages. He's just Matt O'Reilly. In fact, he spent more time organising his celebrations with the individual players, by the looks of him, than any of the noise that you tend to hear from star players. And I think that's refreshing.
I agree. I think, he's exemplary. And I think, it looks like Calmac holds him in high esteem as well. And there's no, Calmac wouldn't stand for any of that. Neither would Scott Brown. Obviously, he didn't play at the same time as Scott Brown, but Calmac's a chip off the old block in terms of Bruni. So I think he seems like a really model professional. Brendan Rodgers has come out and echoed those same sentiments. And I think as well, Brendan said the other day after the Hibs game, I saw him at the interview post-match, and he said, that Matt's actually happy at Celtic, and I think so. Everyone seems sort of comfortable. If a suitable bid comes in, there's a decision to be made. But other than that, he's happy at Celtic. So there still might be a chance. It is paper talk. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has got any more sort of concrete news. But a year in the Champions League, or a campaign in the Champions League, I think it can only enhance his reputation. I think it's a better platform to go out and show you can do it, rather than going into the English Premier League. And the only people you hear about saying it's the greatest league in the world are the people who actually exhibit that orbit, inhabit that orbit, should I say? Sorry.
The thing is, Ian, it's box office. But so was WWF wrestling. That's what I keep going back to. You can shape something up. You can give it all the bells and the ribbons, right? But when you actually watch the product, you ask yourself, is it that good? But I understand why players go there. The money's there. It is another platform. But I think it's a good point Ian makes there. I'm going to come to you on that. Another season of Champions League. It's a new approach. Obviously, there's more games there. Do you think that's a better platform for those 8 games than a season in the Premiership at Brighton? What do you reckon?
Put it this way: if Matt O'Reilly decided to stay until January and played in the Champions League as well as he's been playing for us for the last year or so, that level of performance, he'll go to a club much bigger than Brighton.
Yeah.
I mean, you've already had Atletico Madrid and Atalanta, who are clubs that have competed in the Champions League recently and who are, I think, bigger than Brighton. Probably not financially, but status-wise, absolutely. So we already have those bigger clubs showing an interest in him. And I agree with you. I don't want him to go to the WWE league, but I think he probably will end up going there because that's where the money is, unfortunately. And I don't think he personally is money motivated, but I think that, if someone's offering you £100 or someone's offering you a tenner, which are you going to take? It's like that, unfortunately.
I need somebody to give me a 5-minute warning so that when the Twitter reveal video is about to drop, I can switch off the Wi-Fi. Right, let's have a look at the midfield here. As it stands, I know that we are apparently interested in Arne Engels, and I think that it would be interesting to see the 2 or 3 candidates that we've got on a list, and I'm hoping we do have that. But look at our midfield at the moment. Ian, I'm going to come to yourself. We've got Odin Thiago home. If we're looking through the squad, Tomoki Iwata, Paulo Bernardo. We still have Liam Shaw. I'm just naming him because he's on the list. I don't see him featuring. Matt O'Reilly, Rio Hatate, Callum McGregor. That's your midfielders. And then you could start dipping into the younger players. Unfortunately, Daniel Kelly, who looked to be making that progress, is on his way out. And the reason I'm reading them out is Matt's replacement long-term in the building already, Ian Conroy. Can you see anybody in there that could develop to take his berth?
I think the natural one is Bernardo. We've just signed him. He deputised, I believe, at certain periods last season, or was he maybe subbed on? I don't know, but we've discussed this before. His gait, the way he runs, and things like that, and his physique, he looks similar. He kind of covers the ground and the grass in a similar way. So I think, Brendan's probably got one eye on that, to be honest. If I'm sort of looking at it logically, but that's not to say that it's we don't need maybe a more direct replacement. But it might be a bit of a smack in the chops to Bernardo if he's signed. He's sort of put his eggs in our basket, and we don't give him the opportunity. I think Brendan's proven that he can polish up diamonds, and there's definitely a diamond there in Bernardo. So I think he's probably the natural successor if he goes, unless we went out and spent maybe a 10-15 million pounds, on a replacement that was ready made. I mentioned before about James Ward-Prowse at West Ham. It looks like he's been let go. Whether he's sort of a similar type, he's obviously not going to be on big wages down there. But I think he wouldn't be a bad shout to come up to Celtic, and whether he would come up, I don't know. But in answer to the question, I think Bernardo is probably the man that's next in line.
The reason I ask is, let's say Engels is our top target. We get him. Apparently, he's going to cost in the region of 10 million quid. And you then look at him alongside the midfielders we already have, Liam. I'm going back to Paulo Bernardo's press conference that he gave. We were in attendance. We shared that on the socials, etc. And he was determined he's an attacking midfielder. I mean, I directly didn't think that personally. I didn't think that was his best attributes, offensively. But you think to yourself, that's maybe on the back of the discussions he's had with the manager. If Matt O'Reilly was to leave, and I don't want him to, but if he was to leave in the next 48 hours, we go into the weekend's game and Bernardo starts. So it would be Bernardo, Hatate and McGregor. If you do bring someone like Engels in, he is at a completely different stage of his development, rather. So he's not going to step straight in. Even if he's more of a Matt O'Reilly type player, Liam, he's not going to step right into the berth. So we might then have to change the way that we play. And that's a shame, because we've started off tremendously, particularly the 3 in midfield.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the option of pushing Calmac up to a more advanced role and slotting in Iwata, so you can maintain the same shape. But, Callum McGregor, he's still only 31, but he's not going to be a 50, 60 games a season guy this season. That's why he's retired from playing for Scotland.
Yeah.
So we can't play that every week. So we need to have like a default. What are we going to go to the plan B when McGregor needs rested? And that's where Bernardo could come in if you went with that system. So basically swap out O'Reilly for McGregor in essence, and then slot Iwata in. But then you can also bring Bernardo in to play either of those positions when McGregor needs a rest. But that's dependent on nobody getting injured, and somebody is going to get injured in the course of the season. That's the other issue.
Absolutely. We've seen it with Kyogo. I mean, so far then, the 2 midfielders, I'm not going to, and it's no disrespect to Shaw, but I would expect him to move on at some point in this window. But the other 2 midfielders that I mentioned there, Iwata, who you and I have discussed at length, Liam. I rate him. I think there is something there. I'm not sure the plan for Callum McGregor is to play him offensively, which is probably going to block Iwata from getting game time. And the other one being home. Are you surprised at how little Iwata has been used this season so far?
Yeah. I think it's unfortunate. He's just... Our starting 11 at the moment necessitates that he's on the bench. That's a fact. And someone from the midfield is going to have to move on or get injured to free up a space. But I think as soon as a space becomes available, for me, Iwata's the next in line. Mm-hmm. Because I agree with you. I don't think that Bernardo is not the finished article yet. Definitely not a replacement for Matt O'Reilly. But I think that, there's the option of... I think Iwata is more ready to step into that team and maintain that system.
Yeah.
But it's a difficult one. We need to, if O'Reilly goes, we need to bring in another midfielder. That's the bottom line.
Totally agree with you. And then it really brings up the subject of home then. But we've been talking about trying to salvage as much as we possibly can from that summer transfer window last year, Ian. More or less written off the centre halves, unfortunately. £7.5 million down the drain. Home, a young prospect coming to Celtic, playing the best part of 100 games over in Norway, seemed to make a good positive impression in the early games, but has faded. And he was pointed out for a wee bit of criticism by Rodgers during the pre-season, him and Boston Lowell, who's no longer with us. And Odin Holm, for me, I'm on the fence now. I don't know if he is going to have a career at Celtic. It wouldn't surprise me if he's loaned out for the season, a wee bit like Kwon. Where are you with Odin Holm just now? Has he developed the way you would have thought?
He's not really getting the chances, I don't think. But I think the pathway for players like Odin Holm is the loan route, as a la sort of Ryan Christie, a la Christoph Ayer. I think loan him out. There's definitely talent there, and he's got many, 100 games back in his homeland under his belt as well. So there's a definite player there, and I think just get him out there, get him playing games, in the hurly-burly of his, even if it's in our league or somewhere where he's going to get some, play every week and see how he stands up. Because I think there's a definite player there, and I'd like to see him given a chance. But I mean, obviously, the hindrance you have is being at a club like Celtic, and so we have a lot. Our kind of ethos is to sort of get project players and polish them up and sell them on. But you've got to win every week as well at the same time. So it's a double-edged sword, and it's not easy to exist in that environment, especially when you're young as well. I mean, you can have the exuberance of youth, and that can carry you through, and you can roll with the punches, or it can bury you. So I think a season away on loan is what I'd like to see. And yeah, I'm pretty sure he would develop in the right way, like especially like Ryan Christie did.
Yeah, the loan option has worked for us. We've even seen it with Liam Scales, going out to Aberdeen, probably a bit of a forgotten man at that stage, comes back, breaks through. Callum McGregor, Ryan Christie, Chris Ayer, and to a lesser degree, Tommy Rodgers. He went back over to Australia to get some games. I've got a question coming in relation to Ben Summers and whether or not he's still at the club. Apparently he is. He had a loan spell last season at Dunfermline Athletic, and those in the Kingdom of Five were very impressed with him. They said that he really did impress Ben Summers, but whether or not he's in the plans, he is only 20, attacking midfielder. Back in the day, you'd have been looking at the young guys coming through, wouldn't you, to step up into the squad anyway. Kei Matsu, welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. You're commenting on YouTube. Hatate is a quiet guy who ducks the spotlight and doesn't say much, even if you engage him. That's just a personal trait, nothing to do with his allure as a player. I think, yeah, he some Celtic fans weren't happy when he didn't do the whole huddle thing. But I'm not about to put him in the same bracket as Ollie McBurney and Fleck and all these guys. He's just his own wee person, isn't he, Rio Hatate? And he has started off the season brilliantly. Because I think last season, right, but at the start of the season, I said, look, I'm looking forward to Rio Hatate, Lila Abada, Matt O'Reilly under Brendan Rodgers. And it was almost like the kiss of death to Abada and Hatate because it didn't work out, Liam. But this season, going by the first three games, Hatate seems to be back up to that point. Yeah, he's lost the ball a couple of times. I think that's part of his game. He's a risk taker, isn't he? But he seems to be, dare I say, back to his best.
Well, I think you've just nailed it there. The key is that I think he's been encouraged to take more risks in his attacking play. He was maybe a wee bit too cautious last season, and I think the manager's taken him aside, had a word with him, and say, look, just take, if you get the chance, take on the shot. If you have the chance to make that attacking pass, make that attacking pass. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. And I think that you can see that in his game now, that he is playing with confidence. And it doesn't come off 100% of the time, but it never does for any player. But he's getting more right than he is wrong at the moment, and that's working well for us.
Yeah, and the comments made by Brendan Rodgers were very interesting, and that he was able to criticise some aspects of Rio Hatate, but he did in such a way that it was a year ago, and it's almost like he's came through that. So now I'm going to mention it rather than give him a hard time when he was going through that dodgy kind of patch of form. The big concern for me, Ian, is I'm almost resigned. I'm almost resigned to losing Matt O'Reilly, but we cannot afford to lose two of the star midfielders. I mean, is it just gossip? Is it speculation? I don't know at this stage, but there's no way we can afford to lose O'Reilly and Hatate. That's just an absolute no-no. And surely Brendan Rodgers is thinking the same, Ian.
Absolutely. I think, but us being Celtic, when I say us being Celtic, I mean the board. It's a caper we'd probably pull, and I said this before in previous pods. I think every season, if we had the right kind of offer, we'd have a fire sale every time. Every player's got a price, but you've got to draw a line somewhere. If you start decimating your squad and start having you basically have to rebuild every season. Lots of money in the bank, but you're rebuilding every season. That's not a sustainable model either. We cannot. If one goes, we can't let the other one go. Was it last season? It looked like Hatate, his body language. We all say we are body language experts, but he visibly did look like he was a bit crestfallen.
Yeah.
After Ange left. So whether that was because he wanted to move away, I think he said that he wants to play in one of the top 5 leagues. So it's one or the other for me. Unless we've got some kind of succession plan bubbling away in the background that we don't know about. Who knows?
Which in itself would probably surprise us due to the time it's taken us to do business at the moment. There was that moment. I'm trying to remember if it was the Dundee game where Mikey Johnson scores 2, and there was an embrace at the end of the game, and Hatate looked very upset, and Rodgers went on the park, and we were all talking about it because, as you say, Ian, we become body language experts overnight, don't we? There's a good point in here as well. Oh, plunge! Why plunge the knife? O'Reilly has played his last game. Come on, mate. You never know. Keep Hatate till next season, says Chris Pender. And I think, I'd agree with it. I don't think we've seen that peak Hatate yet. I think Hatate can have a season where he gets as many goals and assists as Matt O'Reilly did last season. I do. I think he's got it in him. And at that point, and he's maybe done it in the Champions League, you're going to have the same level of interest in Hatate as we're currently having in Matt O'Reilly. What about, Ian, you've not had an opportunity to talk about this yet. Brendan Rodgers comes out with a flamethrower. He's asked about the tickets. He puts everybody in his place. Box office Brendan, isn't it?
It is. And I'm glad that he came out and said what he said, because it's true. It can't be denied. But, it's kind of, I think, I quite often get stuck in these sort of YouTube spirals, and quite often that Simon Jordan pops up on, espousing his. He's pretty good and matter of fact and forthright in lots of ways, but he's not privy to the the ins and outs of what actually happens in Scottish football. And if he's getting that kind of steer from Graham Souness and Jim White, Jim White seems a bit more fair-minded actually, but certainly Souness, he's a tad biased. So let us be clear, Rangers stopped Celtic fans coming in because we were rubbing it in, because we kept winning. And I think I saw it as well recently. There's one of the podcasts, and it was Josh Windass that was on, and he was interviewed. I don't know if you've seen it, and he said that when French Eddie scored that goal, he said it just changed everything because they thought they were going to win the league.
Was it? I think that was on Open Goal, wasn't it?
Open Goal, that's right.
Open Goal, yeah.
from a couple of years back, maybe. But that was such a watershed moment for them, and I think they're still sort of reeling from it. So that was why we were banned, and then obviously we repaid the compliment. So, but it was really good to see Brendan coming out, baring his teeth again, coming out, doing the haymaker and coming out punching on behalf of all of us, really, because it set a few records straight and long overdue.
This is the thing, right? So you get the Brendan Rodgers who makes a point when, regardless of the weather, etc., where the team coach is ready to leave and there's a crowd of fans outside Celtic Park, just at the official car park area for staff, he always makes a point of going over. He's got that, for me, and it's genuine, right? And it's almost as if he's making up for everything that happened before and all that kind of stuff. So, in the one moment that I have directly spoken to him at the St. Roch's game, it was so genuine. And he wasn't just trying to get away from you. He did want to have a conversation. And that's the kind of nice side of Brendan Rodgers, I think. You see it in the press conferences, how articulate he is when he's talking about certain players and his plan and his strategy. But there is that side of him that if he needs to take aim, he does. And what I'm saying, Liam, is if he can do that in a press conference, right, to some generic question from a generic reporter at a press conference, then surely it'll be like that behind the scenes when necessary, and not just with players, but with the guys who are doing the deals for him to try and bring the players in that he has requested. And I'm thinking that kind of ruthless element, it's good to see it from time to time, because as fans, we see the nice Brendan, coming over, signing autographs and talking to fans. But it's good to see the ruthless element, because you think, hopefully he's doing that behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely you saw it when we won the league last season. He was, I wouldn't say gloating, but he was very kind of smug and kind of like, yeah, see, told you, come back and see me at the end of the season. He was very not slow to rub it in, shall we say. So he definitely does have that ruthless streak about him, particularly when he knows that he's in the right. And I think it's something that I have grown to like about the guy, I must admit. I remember, I can't remember the exact scenario, but I remember there was a time when he was interviewed and somebody said something about a player's performance, whatever. And he was like, no, don't be disrespectful.
Was it Lee Griffiths?
That was it.
Yeah.
He basically said, look, don't be disrespectful. It's a professional footballer we're talking about. Just, keep it to talk of the performance on the park. Let's not get disrespectful with it. And I thought that was really classy. I remember thinking at the time, that speaks a lot to the character of the man. And I hope that, like you say, that same kind of not being slow to call out nonsense, giving a supportive hand where it's needed and a smack in the back of the head when it's needed, metaphorically speaking, is how he's approaching things behind the scenes as well. And I'm sure it is.
I remember it well, actually, because it was the day that we all expected Lee Griffiths to start against Rangers. And it was Dembele that started, and Dembele did all right that day, if you remember back. And Luke Shanley asked him the question after the game, and he was shot down, which was one of the kind of early signs that don't mess with Brendan kind of thing. Interestingly enough, Lee Griffiths, now that we brought him up, he is 34 years young today. And you know who was number one, Ian Conroy, when he was born?
34 years ago.
34 years ago today.
Stone Roses?
I wish it was. I wish it was a cool band like that. It was Bomb Ballerina. It's a bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini. So unfortunately, not very cool. You Can't Touch This was number 7.
I was going to say MC Hammer was the one that I was thinking of.
Was it? Who was number 10? I'm Free by Soup Dragons. That's maybe going to sneak in there. But yes, Lee Griffiths, 34 years of age now, playing his football over in Australia for Mandurah City. I think there's a CSC over there, actually, keeping an eye on him. And I think he scored a few goals. So all the best to Lee Griffiths and happy birthday as well. But yes, a lot of good points coming through in relation to the Matt O'Reilly imminent departure, the Rio Hatate gossip, and obviously the way that Brendan Rodgers is dealing with the media and hopefully dealing with those behind the scenes as well. But you've come on today, Liam, with a belter of a jersey. Cannot wait until I can use that in one of my thumbnails. And it brings a conversation rather back to goalies, because obviously that was a big concern at the start of the window. And it's absolutely not a concern now, is it? And I know that Schmeichel hasn't been tested too much, but I'm going to give you one moment of the game against Hibs at the weekend. 70 minutes in, we're doing that thing where it was almost like, we're passing it back and forward horseshoe, right? It comes to Schmeichel, no, I'm just going to play in Hatate. And he played the ball and he transitioned it into an attack, just like that. And that's something that I don't think Joe Hart was doing. And we actually broke away, and it was a great run by Hatate. He was almost skived on about the halfway line. But that was all down to Schmeichel picking a pass. And he's brilliant at it, isn't he?
Somebody's picked up for his dad, definitely. I think Peter Schmeichel back in the day was the absolute master of that, just transitioning to the quick attack. I think that, like you say, we've not seen him do much in terms of like great saves or whatever because he hasn't had to. But I think that also shows how much of a calming influence it has on the defence when you've got a guy like that behind you and you're supremely confident in his ability to deal with whatever happens. It just stabilises the whole unit.
It does, and I told the story yesterday for anyone who hadn't tuned in. Johan Mialbi was in Glasgow over the weekend. He went for a bite to eat, and he was approached for a photograph stroke signature because the person thought it was Peter Schmeichel over to watch Casper playing for Celtic. So he just went along with it, as you would. Ian, have you ever been mistaken for someone famous? Ian Conroy? Who's your doppelganger? Everybody's got one.
I have actually by a few people a few years ago, and I don't think I look like him. Liam Frey from the Cortinas.
All right, yeah.
There was a girl going. He went to see a gig in Glasgow. And he thought it was me.
Did you just go with it? Did you just go?
No. I mean, I don't. We just have a similar haircut.
Slightly better than KD Lang. That's all I'm saying, Ian. Because I have been likened to KD Lang from time to time, and it's difficult to deny it, to be honest. So I just take it right on the chin. Dennis French. Does Bernardo replace Matt's goals and assists? Not even close. I want to have a wee chat about this, right? Because we're thinking about the Matt O'Reilly of last season, aren't we? That's what we're thinking about. So if you look at the Matt O'Reilly the season before, not his first season, he'd obviously been in since January. His first full season at Celtic. He's in and out of the side. He's not always the first pick. There was that 3-month period when Moy was brilliant and he was Andy's go-to midfielder. But Matt O'Reilly, if you look at his stats in that particular season, he played 52 games, 3,300 minutes, scored 4 goals. He did get in on the assists. He got 14 assists. And I think in the pre-season that Brendan came in, the big chat was around he needs to add goals to his game. Obviously, he went on to do that. So if you compare that particular season to Paulo Bernardo's first season on loan at Celtic, he only played 1,400 minutes, 33 appearances, 4 goals, 3 assists. Very important assists and goals. So Matt O'Reilly created or scored a goal every 183 minutes, and Paulo Bernardo created or scored a goal every 206. So it's not a massive gap, Liam, right? And I don't expect Bernardo to have just as many goals and assists as Matt O'Reilly did have last season. But I'm not writing him off either, because we did see kind of snippets. We did see elements of his play where he can be creative.
I mean, to be honest with Bernardo, I think he did kind of dine out a lot on that goal in the New Year game for a wee while. I think he kind of coasted on that for a while, and that did get him some leeway with the fans. But the fact that he did that shows that he's got that ability. So all he has to, if he does that 7 or 8 times throughout the season, and if 1 or 2 of them are against Rangers, I think we'll be quite happy with that return.
This is the thing. Some people dine out on a goal against Rangers for the rest of their life, don't they? I certainly would. Ian, stats and figures, there's nothing to suggest that Bernardo's going to have the same kind of upturn, trajectory that Matt O'Reilly had last season. But I'm not writing him off. I think we've seen enough to know. You've seen him in the cup final, for example, grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck. Could have gone down at the halfway line quite easily. He didn't. He drove forward, a brilliant drive and run. Good shot, good speculative effort, and we get a goal through Ida. And there was that moment that Liam's already mentioned, which will live long in the memory. That was a cracking goal. I'm not quite writing him off yet, but I don't think he's going to get up to the Matt O'Reilly standard of last season. I don't even think Matt's going to do that again.
Well, it took Matt a couple of seasons, 3 seasons, to get to that point. So I'm thinking that he's definitely got the potential and he's got the right manager to try and coax that out. So if, I can't imagine it would be in his first season. Well, it's going to be his second season, isn't it? But last season was a bit of a sort of a breakout. Liam, I do like Iwata a lot. I really do. I think he was MVP, wasn't he? Before he signed for Celtic in the Japanese league. So I think I'd like to see more of him. I know he hasn't featured much in pre-season, so I'm hoping that he's not falling down the pecking order with Brendan. I'm going to. I think everyone knows my feelings. I'm not saying that I want this to happen, but if we did lose O'Reilly, Iwata and Bernardo, I think we would do all right. I think he could let Bernardo sort of. He could ease him in, I think, but he needs a run of games. He needs to be under pressure. He needs to be playing alongside Kalmak. Mm-hmm. And that player that you mentioned, the £10 million player, I've forgotten his name.
Arnie Engels.
I don't know if anyone else saw it, but I read an article by Derek Ray, the commentator, who is a bit of a German football expert. And I think he was saying that he looks like a defensive midfielder. Very adept and very, very sort of commanding for such a young man.
Yeah.
And he pitted well against Jude Bellingham when Bellingham was at Dortmund. So he gives him high praise. But he said he's a bit of a utility player as well. He can play it right back and he can play further up. His best position is definitely defensive midfielder. So I don't know if that's more paper talk or whether it's that would suggest he's not a replacement for O'Reilly.
He's a man in the know. He knows football inside out, doesn't he? But when you do look at the games played by Engels, although most of them have been in that central midfield area, and he's played games at right mid, left wing, right wing, full back. Right. So he is definitely able to adapt. In terms of goals and assists, I know it doesn't always tell the full story. 9 goals and 20 assists in 101 games of senior football. So he does get in and about it. What's that? 1 every 3 games. Maybe not as impressive as Matt O'Reilly, but he gets in about it. But yeah, that is interesting. And I know what you're saying there with regards to Iwata. He's a quality player, and Liam and I have banged the drum about Iwata many, many times in the past. There was some time last season where I felt he was the kind of guy we needed to come in and shore up the midfield. But it was fleeting performances. He's never let us down. He's a good squad player to have, and I hope we do keep a hold of him. There's so many other players that I think are non-contributors. You move on first. The 2 centre-halves I've already mentioned. There's talk about Lagerbielke going out on loan, for example. Kobayashi, I think, is another one. These guys are probably, slowing down the process of us getting other players in. Liam, you're on the show. We've got to talk about Maeda. I could have taglined at that. You and me, we go way back on this Maeda chat, don't we? Maeda playing through the middle. He's not bad, is he?
Well, no one likes to be, condescending or smug or arrogant, but I'm going to do it anyway because I've been saying for 3 years that that's where he should be playing. So, yeah. Celtic's system necessitates that we use him as a left winger because that's where he's most effective when we have our strongest 11 out. But we've seen that he is a striker. He can score goals as a centre forward. That was where he made his name, first at Matsumoto Yamaga and then later at Yokohama Marinos. And he's still doing it for the Japan national team and keeping Kyogo out the team, might add.
Yeah.
So it's a different system. We play him where we need him most, but it shows that when needed, he can definitely do that for us. I'm just annoyed that he didn't get 3 because I had a 5 on him to get a hat trick.
Remember, he did that in the first half of the pre-season game.
I was there.
Yeah, the quick fire hat trick, and it looked as though he was on fire, and he probably would get a hat trick at the weekend. It was great to see, and all the while I'm thinking, just wait till Tuesday, and I'll bring it up so Liam can, just sit there in his splendour because you've been calling it all that time. But it does beg the question with regards to where we are up top, right? So we know what Brendan said about his plan, and his plan was Kyogo. He never mentioned Adam Maeda, but he would have a second choice, and we now know that Adam Maeda's in the building. And he was talking about bringing in a younger player to be that third choice, and it was Rocco Vata at that time. He's now left. Do you run with what we've got, Liam? That's my question. Because obviously playing Maeda down the middle weakens your left-hand side. Do we run with what we've got in terms of centre forwards?
So just to pick up on a point in the comments, Brown Warrior, yes, Kyogo was a winger who became a striker when he came to Celtic, so it went the other way with him. So yeah, there is that. If you think about it, we've got 3 striking options now. We've got Kyogo, we've got Ida, and we've got Maeda. Personally, I would like to have one more, but if need be, I think we could go with that and be okay. I mean, domestically, it's not a problem, but Europe is where we're going to need the depth, and that is where, we might get found out. Players like Ida are not proven at that level yet. I say yet because he does have the potential. I think that if we're going with a 1 up top formation, which personally I don't like, but that's modern football. We play with 1 main striker. If we're doing that, then having 3 to choose from is fine. And the good thing with Maeda is he will still play as a left winger when everyone's fit. So we can play 2 of the 3 at any given time. We do also have the option of playing Kyogo wide if need be, but as much as I think he did well in that position for Vissel Kobe, I don't think it would fit because they play a very different style of wing play to Celtic. I don't think it would fit.
What kind of winger is he, Liam? Does he like going outside, inside? What's his style?
He likes to kind of cut in and try and have a shot. But I think if you remember back to the first game at Ibrox under Ange, where we played him as a winger that day, because Edouard was still, his body was still at Celtic, but his mind was clearly somewhere else by that point. And I think it didn't really work that day, and we kind of gave up on it after that. But it's one of them. See, if we were 15, 20 points ahead in the league with 3 or 4 games to go, it's an experiment I'd like to see us try and for a couple of games to see how it worked. And the thing is, with Kyogo's creative ability, there is also the option of playing him as the quote-unquote number 10.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how that would work because I haven't seen him play that role. But with him dropping that bit deeper now to try and make things happen, that's an option. If we're a goal down in Europe with 20 minutes to go, whatever, bring on Ida, keep Kyogo on, keep the 2 wingers on, and just sacrifice one of our midfielders and drop Kyogo into that number 10 role. That is another option to potentially accommodate all 3 of them.
Yeah, it's good to have that level of option. I think when I look at the squad, and I do think it needed to be trimmed, we've effectively lost 2 strikers in O and Vata. And the reason I use Vata, even though he's played a lot of games on the wing for Ireland, for example, is because he was name-checked by Brendan Rodgers. So we've lost those 2 guys. We've brought in Ida. So I still think, I feel as though we're 1 short. It's maybe just that numbers thing. I feel like we're 1 short. But talking in number 10s, Ian, I know you love this because you love a bit of the old the continental football, right? And that quote from Zinedine Zidane, who as a young player had played for Cannes and Bordeaux in France and knew all about Lubo Moravcik, who had gone to Saint-Etienne and he'd been sensational for them. And he basically said that he's one of the greatest number 10s in world football. And Zidane said that having won the World Cup. It wasn't like he said it as a young teenager looking up to Lubo, who was a wee bit older than him. He said it later on in his career after having won the World Cup. But I'm going to share this with you, Ian, in case you never tuned in yesterday. Lubo was very close to signing for Marseille just 6 months before they won the Champions League in 1993. You'll remember the game because of the brilliant Marseille strips, obviously. What was his name? Bernard Tapie was the president, wasn't he? And they played a great AC Milan team that had players such as Paolo Maldini, Costa Curta, Baresi, Lentini. Remember, he was the most expensive player in the world at one time. Frank Rijkaard, Marco van Basten, Donadoni. It goes on and on and on. Jean-Pierre Papin was on the bench for AC Milan, and Marseille beat them. And Bernard Tapie wanted Lubo to be Marseille's number 10. How incredible is that? But Saint-Etienne wouldn't sell him to a rival French club. That's the reason they never sold him. Incredible, isn't it? Unbelievable. And though, and this is that, and I said it yesterday, Lubo said, if I'd done that, I might never have played for Celtic. So no regrets. And I love that. So what's your take on the Maeda through the middle? I mean, obviously, Kyogo gets injured. He misses the game at the weekend. That was our big fear, wasn't it, prior to Ida coming in? We're running with one striker here. And our biggest fear has occurred. Kyogo's shoulder is giving him jip. And until he gets it operated on, it will continually be a big risk. And, I was looking at when CCV went for his knee surgery. Remember, we more or less won the league. And then we sent him away for surgery knowing, right, we've got a Scottish Cup final to play. But it's against lower league opposition. We're going to win it without CCV. And we just ran with it. And then he missed a wee bit of the following season. That's when we should have sent Kyogo for surgery as well. But it's just going to be one of these things. It's always going to be a risk. But I actually think, Ian, Scottish teams will target him. And they'll target his injured shoulder as well.
Well, any advantage the teams will go for, won't they? Fairly or unfairly. It's one of those things, unfortunately. And he is slight in stature. I think he's a tough wee nut though. But I think in terms of Maeda through the middle, I love Maeda. I love him. I honestly, if he could package what he has, bottle what he has, and give it to other teams, I think there'd be doping questions all over the shop. And that's just his natural state and ability. So he's a wonder to behold, and I'm glad he's at our club. In terms of him playing through the middle, I think at a higher level, I don't think I think he's more kind of Dessers than Kyogo. I know he's played a lot through the middle. He's played for his national team through the middle, and he's trusted for the Japanese national team through the middle. But just my own personal perception when I watch him, and I think it was you that said it and made me chuckle, and it still makes me chuckle every time I think about it, is that he's more just as likely to hit the Green Brigade as he is the back of the net. And I think
Sorry, Liam, mate.
But it's an observation, which is you laugh because it's plausible, But he scores some cracking goals as well, and his speed, he gets through. I mean, I watched the match day highlights on Saturday, and it was the Ipswich Liverpool game, and I can't remember the player's name he was basically put through one-on-one with the keeper, and he should have scored. And this is a Premier League player, because he only had 1 foot. He checked back onto his left. He's obviously a left-footed player. Checked back onto his left foot, and the two Liverpool defenders got back and made this. And it wasn't a goal, but he was so far ahead. He should have scored if he had 2 feet. And I think Maeda has that ability. I don't think he's not exactly 2-footed. 1-footed. He can finish with both feet, so he has that in his locker. But I think it would be for the odd occasion rather than the norm for me. I think he's more effective on the wing, sort of terrorising fullbacks.
Yeah, and again, you do think of the derbies, don't you? And the way that he is always the danger man in these games. I'm going to tap into some of these comments coming through. Fantastic to get you involved. We've got Mamansis rumours that Lagerbielke on loan to Heerenveen. Just one of the ones that, you'll end up a year on loan somewhere before anyone is willing to pay the kind of money, because they'll be looking at, why has he not played the minutes since he went to Celtic? It's a try before you buy. Let's hope it goes through, because he's not going to play for Celtic. Rodgers doesn't rate him. Good to see Martin T on the chat as well. Anyone saying we need an MOR upgrade is not thinking straight. How much would that cost? Martin, you're right. We cannot sign that upgrade as the ready-made kind of model. I think that anybody we sign will be part of the development, will be maybe in 2 or 3 seasons to get up to scratch. So what do we do in the meantime? Because we can't spend £25 million, can't we, on a player? James Lafferty, great to see you coming in on the chat. James, Calmac pushed up is a very good option. I think we've said that quite a few times, Liam, and Alan Morrison is adamant. Alan obviously is the man with the figures. He's adamant that it wouldn't work in his advancing years. He's shown this season that obviously he can still score a goal. The goal against Hibs was tremendous. Contender for goal of the season. What's your take on it? Because, he is only 31, and I know that me and Ian are sitting here going, that was a long time ago for me, Ian. That was 15 years ago, mate. He's only 31. It's not like he's over the hill.
The thing is that playing in a more advanced role doesn't necessarily mean him having to run about anymore than he currently does. Because,
like,
if
like
you're
Lupo. Look at Lupo, 35-year-old under Martin O'Neill, number 10. Do your thing.
Yeah, it's and the thing is, we've got players like Maeda and Kuhn doing the running, spreading the play wide, and then they cut it back, and Kalmak comes onto it, and then that's how you get goals like the one at Easter Road the other week, right?
Yeah.
That's where it comes from. It's not about the pace, it's about the timing of the run. It's about having the footballing intelligence to be in the right place at the right time, and scoring the goals. I mean, right, not on the same level in terms of ability, right, but just as an example, Lothar Matthäus, right, was an attacking midfielder, and he slowly moved back as he got older, right, became a defensive mid by the time he was about 31, 32, finished up playing as a sweeper by the time he was 40, right. Now, I think because of that example, there is, people look to him as the example of a great player who can play on to a very high level and still, at a very advanced age. But it's not necessarily the case that you have to drop deeper as you get older. You just have to change your approach to the game. Like I said, I don't expect McGregor to play as many games this season as he did last season. I think certain league games where we might feel it's a more comfortable opposition, he will, possibly sit out a game or two. I could see that, particularly if it's coming off the back of a hard Champions League away game, for example. So it's about using the resources properly and getting the most out of the player. But that certainly doesn't mean that he can't play more attacking.
By the way, this isn't a dig at Alan. Alan's site and the Huddle Breakdown are excellent. Amongst the best Celtic content out there. It's a good point James has made, and I tend to agree with it. If we're playing at pace and you take the ball from your defence and you link it to the attacking midfielders or your wingers, what's the difference between doing that and playing at pace from, let's say, taking the ball from your defensive mid and linking up the forward? They're still doing the same job, just in a different area of the park. Tell me if I'm wrong, please, in the comment section. I agree with James Lafferty. Danielle F, good to see you. Has Ben Summers gone back out on loan? I'd like to see him getting... I've not seen anything to suggest that he has. But at 20 years of age, if he's not in and around that first team, don't put him back to the fifth tier of Scottish football. Get him out playing football again, at least at championship level. But if possible, maybe even in the same division that we're in as well. Smell the Glove rightly says it was Emmanuel Petit that broke Lubo's leg before his proposed Marseille move. And the leg was still broken, even though he had come back and played. It was still broken. It came up when he was getting a medical, and he had been training and playing with a broken leg. Incredible stuff. Frank Brennan, welcome to the show, Frank. As a Francis Joseph myself, it's most welcome to see another Francis Joseph, in this case, Belfast's very own Francis Joseph Turley, getting into the first team squad slowly but surely. A quick one on that then, Ian, right? Here's a young guy who's gone away to America. And when he's gone over there, all the chat has been about Daniel Kelly and Rocco Vata, and that's the focus on the youth. And Boston Labo to a lesser degree. Francis Turley's just gone about his business quietly. He's come on, a couple of substitute appearances, showed up really well. We spoke about him a few weeks ago. In fact, I think the Chelsea game, he impressed in a cameo. And all the while in the background, there was contract talks going on with him, but the toys didn't get thrown out the pram. Went about it in a kind of quiet way. He got his contract, 4-year deal, got his 4-year deal, and then he's on the bench at the weekend. And I think that it's pretty under the radar, but what a way to show how to go about your business, Ian. Nice and quiet, keep your feet on the ground, and you're the guy that's on the bench. Rocco's not on the bench, and Boston Labo's not on the bench, and Daniel Kelly isn't either, because all the chat was around A guys, wasn't it? Francis Turley's on the bench. Well done, son. And he's done it the right way, isn't he?
Yeah, I think that's what we like to see as football supporters, especially our club. And I've said this again in the past, I think any young player, the shining beacon of example is you've got Callum McGregor there to look at, how he applies himself, how he trains, how he conducts himself, how he sort of eats. You know, every the full gambit. You've got the benchmark there. You're the captain of your club. Look at how he lives it and breathes it. And it seems to be that he's from a similar mold. And it's to do it quietly. You know, in this modern age where obviously we're going on every platform. You know, that's the medium that we have to sort of do that to connect with them. You know, because we want to make connections, don't we? We're trying to engage and connect with fellow kin, you know, about Celtic. So in these modern times, it's heartwarming to see a young player have that kind of old school, if you like, stoic, under the radar, diligent, do your work. And I think that's no doubt what Brendan Rodgers expects, and he probably exudes backstage. So more of the same, please, young man. And I hope we see a lot more of you in the coming season.
I think you're spot on. And I also like the reference to some of the guys that are there. For me, they're the heartbeat of the club. Callum McGregor, James Forrest, Tony Ralston. I'm putting him in. The bricky's in there. These guys that have come through, maybe been at Celtic since they were 7 or 8 years of age. You know what I mean? And then they make their debut and they've already been at the club for a decade. They know intrinsically what it's all about to be a Celtic player, but also how to represent Celtic 24/7. And I think that it's time, Liam, we had the next batch of that type of player coming through, because fast forward 5 years, Jamesy Forrest will be retired. You know, McGregor, if he hasn't retired, he'll be coming to that age. Tony Ralston will be a vet. You know, you need to have another batch of these types of players to come through, because I think that's important at a club like Celtic.
Well, it's important for the identity of the club, but more importantly, it's a European rulebook necessity that we've got a number of homegrown players. And unfortunately at the moment, I don't see that next generation coming through, but that could change. You know, hopefully Turley is one that does do that. But it's at this time where you really see, by the age of about 21, 22 is when you really get to realize, are these guys going to cut it or not? You know, I think that by that age, we realized that Callum McGregor was a player. That was around about the time he went on loan down to England and came back a much better player. You know, we saw it with, I think, Ryan Christie as well. Went to Aberdeen, came back, was much stronger. But then going the other way, and I don't mean this any offence to the man, but Mikey Johnson has not really kicked on since about that age. Good player, undoubtedly. Showed on loan last season in England that he can do it at a certain level, but I just don't think he fits what Celtic need, unfortunately, and he's not evolved. So that evolution is what we need to see from some of these younger players now. And I really hope there's at least a few of them that can do it. Yeah,
and you're right. I didn't mention Mikey. I didn't mention him. This is his 8th season as a first-team player at Celtic. 8th season. He's only 25. So that's going to be interesting to see if he's still in the building when the transfer window slams shut. Listen, we've only got a couple of minutes, but I want to talk about Nicholas Kuhn. And because Liam got his moment of glory earlier on, because he's banging on about Maeda being a centre forward, I'm going to take mine. I've been saying Nicholas Kuhn since, by the way, the Ayr United game, that he's going to be one to watch. He's going to be the star man this season. And he's come on to a great game, isn't he? 3 goals and 2 assists in 3 games, Ian. He's looking the real deal, isn't he?
He is. You know, he came with a pedigree, you know, Ajax, particularly. And it's, he's put a bit of weight on. He seems that he's harder to knock off the ball now. He looks a really good player. He looks a good player, and I just hope that, you know, again, that sort of the Brendan effect can only just benefit and coax, and just to have that perfect marriage that we've had it a few times. You know, Matt O'Reilly being another one. You know, so you know, I think he's got the capability to do that. Definitely.
There's a couple of guys. I know that Ida's already shown that he can do it against Rangers. Let's not forget his goal in the 3 each game. You know, we always focus on the Scottish Cup game, but it would be great to see Kuhn and Ida, you know, stepping up to the Champions League level. What's your thoughts on them, Liam? You've been impressed?
Yeah, I think it's you know, it's still early, but signs are good so far, looking promising.
Very promising signs. Apparently, says Mickey, a piece critical of Brendan's transfer dealings in the Athletic. I have to say, I rate Bernardo, but I'm not convinced Ida and anyone we've been linked with will automatically improve us. Stephen Sloan comes in to say the window has been open for 67 days. Good number. If Brendan and the recruitment team have targets in specific positions, why after 67 days have we not bought anyone? Why are we not bidding for these targets? Maybe playing the long game, Stephen. I hope we are playing some kind of game. Aero 250. I'll hold off on the recruitment verdict until the window slams shut. I will, however, say that we've took our sweet Tom. Does that mean we've taken our time? Does that mean that we've taken our time? Yeah.
There was a reassuring thing that Brendan said during the week, just before we go, regarding it. Obviously, sort of transfer fees and things like that. And he says, he'd like to think that if we spent like 18 million on 9 players, that we could spend 18 million on 3 players. That's exactly what we've all been sort of trumpeting for ages. Music to our ears. So the fact that the gaffer's on board with that, it's definitely a positive.
Yeah, we've still got a few days to go. I know we're 67 days in. Thanks everybody for getting involved. It's been a busy one. 1,200 strong on a Tuesday afternoon bulletin. We're here every day at 12:30. Join us tomorrow. As always, give us a big thumbs up. And that gig that's ticking along the bottom of your screen there, Charlie Mulgrew is coming along in September to join me on stage at Gracie's. It's a big Acsom gig. But at the same time, Paddy Mullane's coming over from Ireland to make his Glasgow debut. 16-year-old, you might have seen him going viral earlier on this month. Absolute talent, and I cannot wait to see him playing live. I was looking earlier on today. I think there's something like 12 tickets left for that, but the link is underneath this video. Thanks everybody for getting involved. Thank you to Ian Conroy and also to Liam Carrigan for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.